Yo, 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 what's up, guys? I hope y'all are having a wonderful day today. I know I sure am, alhamdulillah. I just wanted to talk to y'all about the Keselyn-Nieupourt struggle, also known as the Keselyn-Nieupourt Jihad, what it was, or what it is, and who are the people responsible for this, and what was my role in this movement. So for those of you who are new to the channel and aren't familiar with my content, hello. I am known by many names, Brennan White, Sultan Ali, Redbeard, Sultan Ali Redbeard, and many others too. And I'm probably the third most well-known person who is using social media to represent the ethnic kosher skin community as of early 2026. During the time of this live stream here on my YouTube channel. And not only am I just known for that, though, I'm known for some other cool things. Now, about the ethnic kosher skin community. Who are these kosher skin people? Who's this community I belong to? Well, all across North America, and not really counting Mexico, in this case just talking about the USA and Canada, mainland English-speaking majority countries. I mean, Canada's also French and Louisiana. You get what I mean. The USA and Canada has a lot of these mixed communities that are known as mestis. That term is similar to Mexico's term mestizo. Mesti communities, also known as triracial isolates. This is the result of multi-generational mixed-race families that lived during early colonial America centuries ago. Some of the first mixed-race families and communities to exist in the United States, well before the modern time where interracial relationships are public, a normal and common thing that exists, and people are having mixed-race kids. This is a newer phenomenon to be seen on the streets and out in public in the USA and Canada, because Canada just had a lot of white people and Native Americans and conflicts between them, and the USA had a lot of things like segregation going on, well, you know, just because of history. Not saying it never happened or our communities wouldn't exist, but it wasn't too common, and it was often hush-hush, something that people didn't really like to talk about, especially if it involved interracial relationships that involve any white people, especially white women. And even to this day, some of these concepts and topics are kind of controversial for some people for whatever reason. Some people aren't ready to hear the stories of these communities. And got a fire truck behind me. They got the sirens on. Something bad done happen. But, so, of all these 200 or so mixed race communities, most of them just consist of one or two families, is what they told me. I'm just quoting word for word what I've been taught to memorize and then continue to read online on the websites. Now, there's nearly 200 of these groups, and of them all, some of them are big, but most are just a family or two in size. Some of the big groups that have lots of people, dozens of families, they're known by unique terms in their area, and they existed between the lines. They weren't really considered black or white. For a long time, they were considered something in between often, and their identity existed in this state of limbo. This often happened because of communities that were known as free people of color. These were people, usually of African or Native descent or both, who were not enslaved. They were free people of color. Often in early colonial America, before the laws banned interracial relationships and black people to own land and vote, before things got really hard, some of the first black people brought to America in the Tidewater region were involved, they would be indentured servants, which is a lesser severe form of slavery than the chattel slavery that happened later. So these black men were able to work until they gained freedom, and black women too. And then eventually they would get out of slavery and buy land and stuff. A couple of these free people of color even themselves owned slaves, because this was before it was such a racist system as chattel slavery, where people are born into slavery. If your mom's a slave, that makes you one. And it was really a race-based thing later on. But before this point, there were actually some free blacks that actually ended up owning a few slaves of their own, including indentured servants who would have been white sometimes. So that's kind of crazy to think about. A lot of people don't want to talk about this for various reasons. I get all kinds of threats for talking about this history. But what happened was some of these free people of color, illegally or illegally before it was made illegal, was marrying into white families a long time ago. And some of them, they kind of got dispersed and scattered out all across the country, trying to flee away from racism. The Appalachian frontier, the Appalachian Mountains, was kind of a hinterland, a borderland, a mountainous rural area, not too different from it is today, but there wasn't a lot of European descended peoples in the Appalachian Mountains, because, you know, they arrived at the East Coast and they continued to expand west, right? But the French, believe it or not, they'd actually been west of Appalachia, all through the rivers, through the Ohio River and Mississippi River, before the English got there. So some of these free people of color were trading and living with the Native Americans and trading with the French and living up in Appalachia. Then, when the white settlers moved into Appalachia, they started facing racism again for their dark complexion. Their identity was questioned, and it was illegal for black people to own land. They could lose their land. Some of these people moved again, even further west, to the Midwest, the Deep South, out west, more out to the western states. They kept moving, while some would stay and some would move every time. So some were in the Tidewater, some were in Appalachia, some were beyond Appalachia in the Midwest and Texas and stuff. Some went even further west into the Rockies. Some went beyond the Rockies. Most of these groups aren't named today. It's just like, oh yeah, that's the Bill family, they're white. But in reality, they're mixed. They just think they're white or say they're white, and they don't really realize what special heritage they have. Or someone will be like, oh yeah, that's the Gibson family, they're black. And then someone will be like, they don't look black. They're like, oh, they're light-skinned black, they're just black people but paler. And it's like, why won't you just admit that they're mixed race? But how someone identifies is up to them and it's their choice. That's something that should be respected, right? Some of these communities, however, are really proud of their mixed heritage and unique heritage that they have, and they don't try to hide it at all. One of those groups is the Melungeons, one of the most famous of these groups. If you went to a place like Sneedsville, Tennessee, back in the 1950s or 60s, you went around asking, are any of y'all Melungeons? You'd get some funny stares, and if you walked up to someone, you're like, yeah, you're a Melungeon, boom, you'd get punched in the face. Because Melungeon was a slur for these mixed race folks who lived in that area around southern Appalachia. And calling someone that was an insult, because if they get exposed for their mixed heritage, they could lose their land and right to vote. Many of these people passed as white and identified as white people. In fact, some of these families had been doing this for so many generations and continuously marrying into white families that these people just thought they were white. But their mixed race heritage got exposed. Oops. Luckily, the times to be a person of color in America weren't as bad, and it was better enough that some people just started saying, okay, yeah, we're mixed. This surprised some of them to find out. Others always knew. But with what was another thing. Some were really proud to find out they had black ancestry. A few still deny it to this day. Today, most self-identified Melungeons who know of their Melungeon heritage and identify as Melungeon, they know that they're part black and they're proud of it. There's a few of them who aren't part black. They take DNA tests. This could be because they've been marrying into white families for so many generations, or just because they were mixed with something else like Native American or some other, people of color ethnic group, and they just got labeled in with the Melangens, because anyone with dark skin from being mixed race or mixed race features in that area, it would have been called Melangen, especially up on Newman's Ridge. But there's records of it being used in the DC area long ago. But the term Melangen continuously was used in eastern Tennessee, some parts of western North Carolina, southwestern Virginia, and some people argue even a far southern part of West Virginia, and some other areas of southern Appalachia around that region. And so these mixed race communities that are multi-generational mixed race communities, not new communities, but those who have a mixed lineage that goes back really far, that's what their ancestors were called. If they're from that area, those are who the people are Melangen. They all have a short list of surnames, relatively short, that if you have an ancestor with one of these surnames, or if your family still has this surname, then being from that area, long-time residents, or family that's been from that area for a long time, greatly increases the chance that they're from that community. And other similar communities exist all over the USA. Like there's the Lumbee tribe of North Carolina, and they're one of the groups that leaned more into their native heritage. There's some groups like the Melangens that they just kind of lean into all the heritage they have as a mixed race community. Everything that's left that hasn't been destroyed by colorism and racism and assimilation and stuff, they hold on to all their traditions and even find new ones sometimes. Some of them have. And then there's some groups that they kind of lean more into a white American or Native American or Black American culture. They kind of lean more into one part of their identity, and they kind of stuck with that all this time. And that shaped how they identified and how their community is. So some of the communities of mixed race origins that are mixed race Native American communities, Native American nations and tribes that had non-native people marry into their community several times into different families for generations. This would create a unique triracial heritage and Native American identities. And these include the Ramapo tribe on the border of New Jersey and New York, the Lumbee tribe of North Carolina, the Piscataway Conoy in Maryland, and many other communities. Speaking of Native Americans, did you know that this cactus is on the flag of Mexico? And in many Native American legends, an eagle landed on a cactus like this while eating a snake. The Mexica people had a legend about this. That's the legend of the founding of the Tenochtitlan, and it's on the flag of Mexico now. Well, anyways, I'm exploring the southern Mesorvand and visiting relatives right now. But so there's many of these mixed communities, but some of them, as I mentioned earlier, aren't really named groups. People just be like, oh, that's the so-and-so family. They're a mix of Black, white, and Native American. They have a really interesting history. They always knew about and always talk about it. It's just this one family. And then if you go look at their family tree, you'll see, oh, they married with another family of the same heritage. One member of this family married this person from this family back in the 1800s. And then, if you go back further on in the 1700s, this family had a marriage between two members of these two same families again. What's that? Members of both of these families at different points in time had married into this family. And you look at this family's heritage and you're like, oh, they are also of Black, white, and Native American heritage. It's like a whole triracial community, but everyone knows about this heritage. They know about this identity. If you go in their house, you can see their culture, where they have traditions from their ancestors, the different racial backgrounds. And that's just it. They're just like, oh yeah, we're mixed and we have Black, white, and Native ancestry, or Black and white and Jewish, or Black and white, or white and Native American and Jewish and Black, or white and Black with a bit of Native American and a bit of North African, and we don't know where this North African comes from on the DNA test. These are the stories you keep hearing from these folks. And they always knew that they had this multi-generationally mixed race culture. They always knew who their ancestors were, what kind of groups of people they came from. and these were an actual existing communities, but there wasn't a name for it. These are what you would call the forgotten triracial isolate groups. When you look at the oldest maps, the first maps of all the different triracial isolate groups are some of the main ones that were made by the likes of, people like Walter Plecker sometimes, who they wanted to carry out a eugenics crusade and do a genocide to remove mixed race people or disadvantage them from society and prevent them from being successful in owning land, or other people who are just genuinely studying these communities with fascination, like, wow, that's really interesting. Different people had different agendas and reasons to study these communities. And they listed them, they wrote reports on them, they mentioned them by name. Some of the names were what we call endonyms. There's some loud trucks here. So some of these terms were endonyms and some were exonyms. An endonym is a community, they have a name that they call themselves, like the Lumbee tribe of North Carolina. An exonym would be like if someone used the term "we sort." Don't use that term. That's an exonym. That's what outsiders used to call the mixed race descendants of the Piscataway Nation, who had native and black and white ancestry. People called them that term, but that's an exonym. That's what other people call them. For them, they don't like that term. It's basically a slur. It's like their version of the N-word. You don't go around calling people that. It's like dropping the hard ER. Some people get really mad at you. So, all these different communities got named these different terms. Some of them reclaimed slurs. Some of them always had an endonym they called themselves. Some had exonyms. So, they were known by all these different terms and mentioned in reports. People wrote about them. People listed them on maps, so where these types of communities existed for better or worse reasons. Unfortunately, sometimes, they were being tracked and monitored. People were doing their genealogical tree, finding their black ancestry and stripping them of their rights. Walter Plecker, the eugenics crusade, and he wrote about the Melungeons. It's really terrible. But, so some of these communities slipped through the cracks. They existed, but they were just, not really noticed. They might have just been labeled as black, even though they were a mix of black and white and often Native American too. And they always knew this. They had influence from both sides and both cultures. They had culture from black America, culture from white American ancestors they had. It came from different places in Europe, They're like, oh, this is what, you guys do that? Well, that's not from black culture. Where does that come from? Oh, it's an old Irish tradition. And you say it was passed down from this great-grandpa of yours? And that's a black man. Well, his father was a black man. You go far back and you're like, oh, shoot. This guy was half Irish and half Native American and married into this guy's tree 8 generations ago. They passed down an Irish tradition all the way down to the modern family descendants of that guy. So you find things like this. And these people, they sometimes they're paler than the average black American. Sometimes they look like me. Some people look at me and they call me the N-word and they hate me because they can tell I'm part black. But then there's some black people who don't think that I'm like part black at all. They bully me and they harass me. The black American community is just like any other community of people. You get all different kinds of people in it. Some of them, they just don't care. They're just cool, genuine people living their lives. They don't mess with people or put people down. Some of them, they can tell I'm mixed race. I wouldn't even have to tell them. They just know by looking at me. Because, they might have like relatives who are mixed or something. And then there's some of them who pick on me. And they're like, stop trying to act black. Why did you curl your hair? I'm like, I didn't curl my hair. What are you talking about? They keep saying, that's a wig. And I'm like, it's not a wig. This is what my hair looks like. They're like, you're wearing a perm. I'm like, what's a perm? And I Google it, and it's like something white people do to get curly hair. I'm like, no, I didn't do that. I'm just mixed. That's what my hair looks like. I'm part black. They're like, you're lying. You don't look black. I'm like, because I'm mixed. I look mixed. Like, these people, they harass me and they hate on me. This has been going on for my family for many, many generations. So the white people, they hate us because we're black. The black people hate us because we're white or yellow bones, they'll call some of the darker members of our community. some of the darkest kosher skin people are considered black by the black community and even call themselves black and grew up in black culture. But I mean, people like me grew up in black culture. That was passed down to us by our relatives. And we have relatives that even still look black. But if I walk in a black neighborhood in any American city, walk down the street, and I walk up to some folks and I'm like, hey, I'm black, or I'm part black, they'll just laugh at me. They'll be like, you look white, get out of here, boy, and then they'll just harass me and they'll bully me. So this has kind of led to the crystallization of our identity as a unique people. We have darker skin and lighter skin members of our community. We come in all shades of the human rainbow. That includes eye color and hair color too. And we have all different types of hair textures and features. Because mixed race people, you never know what we'll look like. It's like playing the genetic lottery. We all got different percentages of different stuff too. So, you know, and in the kosher skin community, we don't say you don't look kosher skin and kick people out or bully them. So we have been a welcoming space for people in our community. We help each other out and support one another. We got something good going on. So the kosher skin community is essentially, basically, all those leftover triracial isolates I mentioned earlier. Those that thankfully got less of the attention. But, you know, even though we weren't listed in historical records or mentioned as one of these groups in the past, the thing is, many of us were still classified as black or mulatto or free people of color. They just didn't use the term triracial isolates or give us a unique name they was calling us to distinguish us from other mixed race communities like the Lembi or Melangen. We didn't really have a name of our own. But we still went through discrimination. There's still records mentioning our community. They just use other terms like mulatto and stuff. They didn't give us a name. Like the Melangens had a name that they were given. And we didn't really have a name for our community. Well, it depends, because since we descended from all those leftover triracial isolate families, there's many different families across the US and Canada who are part of our community, and some of them are different. There's a lot of variance. It varies from region to region and family to family. Some families did have a term that they were called. Like my family was from one of the most famous subgroups of kosher skins. And that would be a group that was known as, they were in London, Ohio, or Madison County, Ohio area. Madison and Pickaway counties in Ohio. The families with last names like Whitelow or Napper, they were just listed as black people and they identified as black people. But in Columbus, Ohio, there was like black Americans who weren't really mixed as much. They were just like the average black American. The average black American is like often around like, 20% European? So they weren't as mixed as our community was. They were typical black Americans in Columbus, Ohio. And when they saw us, they called us, in modern times, they tried to call us light-skinned blacks and stuff. But back in the day, they used to call us yellow bone, yellow back, or yellow people. And the city of London, Ohio, was often called Yellowville because of all the mixed race folks that were living there. So some of these communities did have names, but they're names that are controversial because you'll get some people in the community who like them and use them, and then there's some who don't like these terms and they see them as slurs. But these, it depends on the different regions and different groups. But all these leftover triracial isolate groups, what we call the leftover ones, you know, the ones that ain't Melangen, they're not Redbone, they're not Lembi, but many of us often have the same surnames, right? Because, for example, the last name Goins or Goings, it exists in the Lembi, Melangen, Louisiana Redbone, and many, many of the others. All the different triracial isolate groups have these surnames that are way more common in these communities than, you know, from outsiders. And some of these surnames are common in the kosher skin community. But the people who have them didn't descend from the Lembi tribe or from the Melangen community or any of these named groups. Even if you go back to the 17 and 1600s on their genealogy. But yeah, that's something interesting to note, I guess, right? So this is how the kosher skin community saved itself from basically destruction and into our community. We were going to be erased. Our history and our unique heritage was going to be forgotten. It was going to disappear forever, as we would have assimilated into what those who educated me on the community, those I learned from, and what I read on the websites, they all like to say a racially binary white and black America, where if you're darker, you're just called black and you have to be black. If you're lighter, you're white and people make fun of you if you claim to be black, and it's better for people to pass as white anyways because they face less racism. This divided our community. The colorism divided our community into people who thought they were black and people who thought they were white. And the white people didn't want to admit that they was part black because, you know, I don't even need to explain why. And for some reason, many of the black people didn't want to admit that they were part white. Our community was being divided. Elders became very concerned about how racism and colorism was going to tear apart our community, and the unique culture we had would be forgot, you know. Because, you know, there were people who were from the kosher skin community, and they would move to cities like Columbus, Ohio, or Atlanta, Georgia, and then when they come back to the family reunion, they would be like sagging their pants and covered in tattoos and stuff. And these families would be like, what are you doing? Well, why did you do this? What's wrong with you, man? Why are you doing this? And it was because they were going to the city and they were living among other communities that were different from theirs. They picked up the culture and stuff and brought it home, which is cool. I'm not against that or anything. But there were some elders who didn't like that. They said, what are you doing, kid? Pull up your pants. You know, you better pull those pants up. You may be an adult, but I'm still your father, and I will spank your butt if you don't pull those up. People started to realize something. Our community was going to be torn to pieces because people kept pretending they was either white or black and wouldn't admit that they were even related to each other, even though everyone secretly knew, or at least all the elders knew. So, what happens next after that? Well, I'll tell you. We tried to start healing our community, I'm really concerned, y'all. Someone was watching my live stream right now. I done. David, I don't know. Oh. Hello. I'm good, how are you? I hope you have a good day today. It was an umbrella. I thought someone was walking up to me carrying a gun because they would be watching a live stream and not liking what I was saying. That's how paranoid I am, telling the truth. People don't like to hear the truth. They've been trying to silence us and smear us to make us look bad and discredit what we're saying for a long time. And that's what this video is about. It's about the Keselyn-Nieupourt struggle. So what's that? Basically, in 1991, a few folks from the kosher skin community got together and decided to save our people from being erased and divided and disappearing and being forgotten forever. They decided to save our culture and save our community. You know, start writing down things, building family trees and stuff. Start inviting everyone to the family reunions and cookouts and trying to fix these problems our community was facing. And so what you ended up with was, well, the Keselyn-Nieupourt's Jihad. So Jihad, by the way, it's a word that originates from Arabic and it means struggle. Every morning I'm doing Jihad when I brush my teeth to make sure that my teeth are healthy and I'm not getting crazy cavities or anything. That's a jihad. That's a struggle for a greater good. The news and media using that term in the news and media in the USA and Canada has been limited to very specific things that aren't beloved or good things, right? But that's not what we're talking about here. So it's unfortunate that that's what happened with the news and media coverage using this term and what most Americans think it means, but that's not what it means. That's why most people just call it the Keselyn-Nieupourt struggle. But that's not what it was originally called. And I don't like how people are trying to change our history to make it more palatable for white Americans. And they try to hide everything that happened with the Nation of Islam, have a Martin Luther King Jr. Day but not a Malcolm X Day. They're trying to erase some parts of our history that they don't like, that doesn't fit the white Jesus narrative and things that they're pushing on us. But I'm not going to get into that because that's more of an opinion than a fact. And this video is just about facts. So, no politics. Not in this video, at least, right? So anyways, the Keselyn-Nieupourt Jihad was just the struggle for the Kosherskian community to be saved, basically. It's kind of accidentally first started in 1991, really, with the invention of the term Kosherskin to describe these communities, different families with this type of origin I mentioned earlier, like the group my own family came from, the descendants of the free people of color in Madison County, Ohio, who mostly identified as black or native, but all of them were a mix of black, white, and native, and many of these families married into white families, and some of the paler kids who looked paler than me tried to start straightening out their hair and pretending to be white, and a few of those people passing as white to survive and escape racism, if they did this for enough generations, they had people who thought they actually were white and stuff, and started getting a chip on their shoulder and being racist and stuff, is how my elders put it and how the websites I read about this mention it, right? I've been studying this for years and stuff and working with some of the most prominent members behind the Keselyn-Nieupourt struggle. So, but really, this was kind of the extent of it in 1991. It was just that from 1991 into the 21st century, there was only around, at first, 24 around 24 to 30 people, most estimates say. Some people think there was more, but we can only prove there was around 24 or so, because some of these people just didn't really mention much online or write anything down before they passed away, or something happened, or they moved, or, things happened, unfortunately. But there are 24 or so people, at least 24 or a bit more, who self-identified as ethnic Kosherskin from 1991 into the 21st century. But these were mostly just a couple adults who were friends and relatives, who, one of them came up with the term, they all picked it up. It was kind of like an inside thing. Like whenever people talked about issues about racism and, some of the family members couldn't really pass as being black or white and didn't feel welcome in either community. And that's when someone would say, well, we're a people of our own, Kosherskin, right? It was just a couple dozen people who knew about this and would say this whenever they saw each other, like if they were hanging out or something. Well, some of their kids found out about this term and started spreading it around in the community. And through the 2010s, there were a few people who mentioned this on the internet publicly, just randomly, like someone's on Instagram and they make a comment on an Instagram page like, yo, what's up, my Kosherskin brother? But this wasn't intentional. There wasn't really an intentional campaign to document the term and the community and the experience people were living. The Keselyn-Nieupourt struggle really starts in 2019, especially towards the end of the year 2019 and what we call late 2019. That's what most people I see call it. When I talk to folks or read some of the websites about our community, they call the end of 2019, that kind of later parts of that year, late 2019. Makes sense, right? And so basically what happened was a bunch of people from the community got together and said, okay, the term Kosherskin, it's perfect. That's how we're going to save our community from being divided by racism and colorism. That's why the term, people came up with it in 2019, but people didn't seriously take it really seriously or make it a big thing. It didn't really catch on. So the few young folks who are, younger people who use social media more, because like older folks weren't really using social media much back then, except maybe on Facebook or something. So it's mostly younger people and the kids who found out about this term in the community, teenagers and young adults who said, okay, let's do this. So a couple dozen of us, including me, got on social media in late 2019 and started uploading everything about our community, from the history to the culture to the foods we eat and many other things too, in order to use social media as an archive to document our culture and our community, so that future generations in our community will have this information and it won't be lost. If something happens and the movement fails or dies down and doesn't get to catch on, our efforts won't be forgotten, and someone else will find it one day and pick it back up again and do something about it, hopefully. But that was the original intention. But also, eventually, it also, thankfully, kind of like a positive side to doing that, was that it could also serve as a way to teach outsiders, just people who aren't from our community, about our community, so that people wouldn't spread misinformation about us and get wrong ideas. Because if people start claiming they believe that there's a thunder god named Pine Tree, we can be like, no, it's not a religious community. It's a heritage and lineage-based community. There is no Karshirskin cult, and there's no people who worship a thunder pine tree god. In fact, no one believes that. There isn't even one person in our community anywhere saying that. Find someone saying that who's from our community. And people try to go on the internet and pretend to be Karshirskin people from our community to try to, make us look bad. They would talk to people pretending to be from our community, befriend some of us, and be commenting on people's social media posts, trying to act cool, and suddenly, they'd start a psyop, a psychological operation, they'd go onto a black space on social media and start using the N-word and singing Ku Klux Klan songs and stuff, or posting something bad, and then everyone would be like, look at what these Karshirskin people are doing. And it would just be some random white guy who lives in his mom's basement that none of us know. And we'd be like, we don't know who this person is. They'd be like, but they've been commenting on your Facebook posts and you hearted it. We're like, yeah, well, we don't know who this person is, but they commented I love your hair. And we thought that was nice, so we hearted it. That doesn't mean we know this person in real life or who they are. When they got exposed for doing that, they started pretending to be real people who are part of our community. But they were impersonating people, impersonating us, trying to pretend to be us. And we started exposing that too. But the cool thing about the Keselyn-Nieupourt struggle and how it started is by trying to document and archive everything about our community and who we are and what we stand for and our origins and stuff. When the haters started catching on to what we were doing and didn't like what we were doing, and have been trying for years to sabotage us and make us look bad, take jokes we say out of context, these guys have been really patient. They'll make things like accounts on the internet, and they'll be nice and pretend to be from our community and befriend some of us. And they'll be cool for years. Then at 3 a.m. when everyone's asleep, they randomly flip the script and they just are making video coming out and exposing the cult. And then they just start making stuff up about there being a cult. They always try to find the worst ways to try to smear our community and stuff to stop us from succeeding. And thankfully, by the grace of God Almighty, they failed every time. And people see through their bull crap. They're getting more and more desperate too and making more and more mistakes. But this is the Keselyn-Nieupourt struggle. It's been a struggle between a couple dozen, maybe as much as a couple hundred, but likely just, in the tens range, 50 or 37 or 91. Just a bunch of young Karshirskin people around, teenagers, young adults, people around my age, people who use social media a lot, just documenting the community on one side. And on the other struggle I mean, on the other side of the struggle, you got the haters. Whether that be by like bullying someone, or exposing that some kid is gay or something, or, you know, pretending to be people and then doing bad stuff, or making things up about us, or, you know, like filing false police reports, calling in a bomb threat to someone's school, and then claiming one of us did it with no proof, and then sharing the posts on social media, and it stays up for several days before the misinformation gets deleted and they got caught and got arrested. People have tried some crazy stuff, and that scared some of us from documenting things on the internet because they didn't want to be the target of one of these horrible schemes. But there's a few people like me who just didn't stop. We weren't going to make them stop us. We knew the truth. We weren't doing anything illegal. We can't get arrested for something we didn't do. We knew the truth, and we didn't care what other people thought about us. We all know each other, and we know the truth, and we know, oh, that person wouldn't do that. It's one of the trolls again at it. And so for the few brave souls like me who never stopped and then took a break until things got better like they are now and then came back online again, we became really famous in the community. Not famous like, oh, I'm a millionaire and I have billions of fans, but famous as in like when you search the term kosher skin, there's around 12 to 14 people who always pop up, and you find their content on the internet very quickly. And I'm one of the top 3 of these people, by the grace of God. I have had people falsely accuse me of trying to shoot up Woodside High School in Newport News, Virginia. I've had the FBI come to my house multiple times to make sure that I'm not part of any terrorist organizations, which I'm not, so nothing ever happened. I just tell them everything they ask, I answer them, and then they leave. And they even say, like, we don't think you're guilty, but we got to do our job. Someone claims they feel scared and threatened, so we got to make sure you're not a threat and report it to our bosses and higher-ups so they know. And then we'll leave you alone, okay, buddy? It's like what they're saying every time, but they still have to come out because a threat is a threat, and it's serious, even if we didn't actually make it, right? I have had all kinds of things happen. I had someone punch me in the face at Colony Pines Park in Newport News, Virginia, which if you're from Newport News and you're a young person around my age from the kosher skin community, you know that that area right there, and that specific park especially, is a hotbed of kosher skin activity. There's a bunch of us around there all the time, but that person came during school hours when I had been sick or something, right? I wasn't at school that day. I forget if I was sick or if I had a dentist appointment or why, but there was a time when I was home during school hours before I graduated, and someone came to that park and punched me in the face. They punched me in the face because they were saying that I tried to threaten the school because of all these Instagram posts. People saw it, innocent people who weren't even trying to spread rumors, just saw it and believed it. Like half the school saw it, but eventually most people forgot it, and we started spreading the truth of my innocence so far that more people heard the truth than heard the false accusations. There's people who didn't even hear that I got accused of threatening to shoot the school, but then they did hear about how, oh, this guy's actually innocent. He didn't threaten to shoot the school. And now people like, oh my goodness, I didn't even know that happened. I'm so sorry that happened to you. And it's like, well, I don't know why you're sorry, but I know who needs to be sorry. All them haters out there. And God willing, one day we'll get to make them all sorry. But first, we need to focus on ourselves and growth and healing in our community. And I'll deal with my enemies later. I'm not asking anyone to help me. That's on me. But, yeah, so that was the Keselyn-Nieupourt struggle. It's just the kosher skin community trying to gain more public acknowledgement and recognition as a people and stuff, trying to document who we are and stuff, putting out this information, trying to save the culture from going extinct. You can do research about who we are and about this online. And then you get these trolls and haters who, they just keep trying to stop us. They've been trying for more than half a decade now, since it started back in 2019. But we've always been continuously winning the struggle. Randomly, right around New Year's Eve, late 2025, early 2026, the trolls thought they were winning, because they could make posts on Facebook and other social media platforms and make fake news articles that aren't real news articles on a website called Medium, accusing us of being Hamas, even though we're in North America and there's no Hamas. We're not even, none of us even know Hamas members. What? But I mean, these accusations are just easy to see through, that they're just ridiculous. It's just always ignorant or uneducated people who believe them. But that doesn't scare us or stop us. There's people online right now, there's probably a couple hundred people who think that there is some kind of a cult or something weird going on, or Hamas terrorists walking around the streets of America making documentaries about their family trees. But we don't really care about what these people think, because we know the truth. You know, like me, I only fear God. I ain't afraid of people. I only fear God. These people ain't scaring me. And be ridden Allah. What was I gonna say? And be ridden Allah. You know, by the grace, by the majesty of God Almighty, I'm still alive. And what doesn't kill me has made me stronger. I don't know about y'all or how y'all feel, all my kosher skin peeps who might be watching this one day, but I ain't shaking. I ain't shook. So there's my testimony and me talking about our community and all that. So yeah, that's just pretty good. Be sure to, if you enjoyed this video, please be sure to share it so more people see it and learn about the struggle. It didn't ever end. It's still ongoing. But it's almost finished and we're on the winning side. And we've almost put the trolls in their grave, because we're almost finished with the documenting project. For those of you who are new to the channel, you should see some of my other videos explaining what a micronation is and what were the micronations that kids in our community came up with for various reasons, as political statements, as publicity stunts to gain attention for our struggle to document our community and the issues we face in our community, or just for fun with other friends in the community. So study the micronations, and also about the Bahari Terra Fantasy series that some folks in our community have worked on for some years now. And when it was not too old, when it was a brand new project, I joined, and for a year or two I actually helped writing some of the content, making material and lore for the Bahari Terra Fantasy series. But it fell off around the time me and a few other prominent creators and workers stopped working on that project. That was a really interesting project that really reflected the creative spirit of some of the kids in our community. And the trolls have tried to use the existence of these micronations and the fantasy stories to try to discredit reality and real stuff about our community and the people behind these things. They've tried to blur the lines between the stories that kids in our community have told and our actual community that exists and about us. And they thought they were winning, but all their plans got exposed, and we had a lot of receipts, if you will, stopping them from doing that. That was what I was talking about with early 2026 and late 2025, when they were like spreading misinformation online, because they tried something different. They just tried slandering us and spreading misinformation about us instead of messing with us directly, so they could outsource their harassment. Because people kept writing lawsuits, and we kept pressing charges on these people for harassing us and threatening our lives and our families. And they got tired of getting fined and nearly going to jail. So they resorted to weaponizing random gullible people on the internet, basically, by spreading misinformation about us. Ignorant people who didn't know about us and didn't know who we were just believe everything they see on TikTok or whatever, or Reddit, or Facebook, or a blog anyone can write called Media, where people can make fake news articles. And I know 8-year-olds Not even joking or exaggerating. Like, I know literal 8-year-olds who publish stuff about Fortnite on Medium. It's not a news site. It's not Fox News or CNN. Like, anyone can upload to it. I don't even think there's much moderation. Like, I can literally go on there and, like, just post a photo of the Spider-Man pointing meme and type, like, 4 sentences, like, I like trees, trees like me, trees are green, it's raining outside, and post it, and it won't get rejected. It's accepted. It goes online. As of early 2026, at least now, that's the situation with media. And look, I love Medium. Don't get me wrong. Many people love using Medium, but that's just the truth. Like, they don't even claim to be like a legitimate news article. It's just a blog site. It's a site for posting blogs. Oh, shoot. I gotta go. If you hear all that noise, someone just drove by me who I'm coming to visit. I'm coming down the road and someone just passed me. And it's the person who I'm on my way to go visit. While I was making a live stream. So, yeah, that's the Keselyn-Nieupourt struggle. That's what it is, basically. I think I've summarized it pretty well. Only took nearly an hour. Ain't that something? Not too long, only nearly a full hour.